Welcome to our session, Bridging the Connection Between Business and Local Communities, Translating Sustainability into Actions in Southeast Asia. My name is Nadia. I'm with the UN Global Compact Network here in Thailand, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So we've come to the final day of the forum, and over the past few days, we've heard a wide range of perspectives on how businesses can advance human rights protections and environmental protections. And we've seen quite a lot of progress. But one area that seems to continuously come up as a shared challenge is the need to strengthen the connection between businesses and the communities in which they impact. And in the context of human rights due diligence, access to grievance mechanisms and remedies is a core pillar. But yet in practice, this remains one of the weakest areas. And so currently, many existing mechanisms tend to focus primarily on internal stakeholders, such as workers, while external stakeholders, particularly local communities, are often not meaningfully engaged in the design or implementation of these systems. And without their input, these mechanisms can risk missing out the very people that are usually the most affected by companies' operations, which ultimately undermines the due diligence process overall. And that's what brings us here to today's session. So today we'll be hearing from speakers across business, civil society, and community organizations who'll be sharing real-world experiences on how to make business community engagement more effective in practice. Before we dive in, I'd just like to quickly acknowledge the three organizations that made today's session possible. So first, we have Give to Nature, which is a Singapore-based NGO serving as a strategic bridge builder, empowering communities and transforming environmental challenges into collaborative solutions. Next, we have Accountability Counsel, which is a legal advocacy group supporting communities around the world to strengthen accountability and human rights protections in international development finance. And lastly, we have the UN Global Compact Network Thailand, which supports Thai businesses in embedding responsible business practices aligned with the SDGs. We're also really grateful to the Embassy of Sweden in Bangkok for their support of this session and also their broader leadership on business and human rights. And we're pleased to have Mr. Emmanuel London here with us today, so I'd just like to invite him to deliver a few brief opening remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, colleagues, I'm honored to speak with you today and for Sweden to join the discussion on bridging the connection between business and local communities. Over the past 3 days, we've heard insights from business participants about the challenges they face in connecting with local communities. One recurring theme was the difficulty in identifying the right entry points and navigating local dynamics. This remains a key barrier for business seeking to engage meaningfully at the community level. Alongside the challenges shared by business, we also heard from civil society, migrant workers, indigenous peoples, and local communities about the real impacts of harmful business practices. These voices remind us that many communities face serious barriers to raising concerns, especially in a context of shrinking civic space and democratic backsliding across parts of this region. That's why today's session and the guiding question it raises are so important. They help us move from recognizing the challenge to responding in a strategic manner. Since 2017, Sweden has supported the Responsible Business and Human Rights Agenda through our partnership with UNDP, as well as civil society partners, grounded in the belief that human rights and prosperity go hand in hand. Sweden remains committed to this path and works closely with the European Union and our Nordic partners to navigate today's complex global challenges through joint efforts and shared values. To meet these challenges, we need broader engagement, especially from the private sector. Responsible business can complement aid, mobilize resources, and drive inclusive growth that benefits communities. The presence of business partners here today is important. Their role in turning human rights principles into real-world action is vital. At the same time, even with limited resources and political headwinds, civil society, human rights defenders, local communities continue to lead with courage and commitment. Their voices bring accountability, lived experience, and moral clarity. They must be at the center of this conversation and our efforts. Responsible business must be accessible to all, not just the powerful. That means creating space for communities, civil society, as well as small and medium-sized enterprises to participate meaningfully. Finally, thank you to all participants. Let us move forward with purpose, with partnership, and with the belief that ethical business practices can be a powerful tool for inclusion, dignity, and progress. Thank you.
Thank you, and Emmanuel, for that opening remark. So let's go ahead and start with our roundtable discussion. So we'll structure today's session around 4 guiding questions with a mix of speaker inputs, and we'll also be opening some questions to the floor for contributions as well, particularly questions related to common challenges and also good business practices. So if anyone wants to share anything or any inputs, reflections, please feel free to do so. Before we start with the first round of questions, I'd just like to briefly introduce our speakers. So to my left, we have Mr. Duangjan Lopaying, Program Manager at Oxfam Laos, who brings extensive experience working with local communities on environmental and human rights issues. On his left is Mr. Wang Diang-ang, who is General Manager of Pioneer Wood Lao Import-Export Company. And he will be sharing insights from a business perspective based on his experience engaging with communities in the timber sector. To my right, we have Akihiro Ueda, who is the Stakeholder Engagement Manager at the Japan Center for Engagement and Remedy, or JCER, which is a platform supporting the resolution of business-related grievances through independent third-party mechanisms. And lastly, we have Ms. Sutari Wanasiri, Communities Associate at Accountability Counsel, who brings expertise in strengthening community access to justice and remedy in the context of international development projects. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our discussion. Let's start by exploring what brings businesses and communities together. So first, I'd like to invite Sutari from Accountability Council. So from your work supporting both businesses and communities to strengthen access to remedy, why is it important for these 2 groups to engage meaningfully?
Thank you so much, Nadia, for the questions. And as many of you are aware, that in terms of the conducting the business, like there are always the aim for a good objective. Like for example, they would like to create prosperity, economic opportunity, and employment for the community. And at the same time, in our work with the community around Asia, we have also learned that they have felt that sometimes the community are left out or they are bearing the cost of the developments or the business operations. So what is really important and what I always heard from the community is that when the investor and the business, they can actually engage with the community in a respectful way, in a respective way, and also in the respect with biodiversity in our environment, there are opportunity to create a more truly sustainable and also a very just and equitable development process. So I think the most important things that many people have highlighted are building the trust. Like how can the business and the community building the trust in order to work together and push forward the developments that are based on this respectful approach. I think one of the key issue is that the listening and being inclusive in the consultations, like listening to what the local needs are and what are the goal of the business, and then trying to work together from that shared common interest would be a good start. The other key issue that we have always heard from our work with the community, especially based on our complaint database that we comply about 2,300 complaints from the community that have been affected by the development projects around the world. The key main issue is also the lack of disclosure of the project informations and relevant all around impacts. I think these are the key and basic foundational principle, like the providing a transparency of informations and giving an open door for the people to actually being heard and being consulted in the process is one of the things that I would like to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sutari. A lot of really good topics there, from building trust and also transparency, which is really important in creating a good and sustainable relationship between businesses and communities. So now I'd like to turn to a more business side of things in this conversation. So we'll hear from Mr. Wang Diang-Ang. Just like to ask, from your experience as a business leader working with communities, what have you learned about the value of engaging with communities, and why is it good for business?
大家好，我是来自老挝的先锋牧业，我姓王。
So I'll help Mr. Wang to translate. He's Mr. Wang from Pioneer Woods from a Lao company, timber company.
我们中国企业在老挝差不多15年时间了。
As a Chinese company, I have been operating in Laos for 15 years.
我们企业在当地积极参与这个当地社会的那个社区的活动。
So I have been active in community engagement with the Lao communities as I operate in Laos.
我们和社区共同的利益是怎么去社会稳定。
For shared values and common values between our business and the communities is for social stability, I consider as the most important.
为当地的老百姓家庭创造幸福。
And we want to create stable and happy life for the local families.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wang. A really nice, thoughtful perspective there. The importance of social stability and making sure that the communities that we work with are happy and are able to sustainably continue living while we operate our businesses as well. So for a final reflection in this round, I'd just like to turn to Duangjan from Oxfam Laos. So I'd just like to ask, from your perspective, why is engagement with business important from community perspective? And what do communities hope to gain from that relationship?
Thank you. I'd like to share about experience from Laos in terms of a very small case for the rubber sector, where rubber is the key livelihood crop. It's not really a strategic crop in the country because there's a market driven, and then most investors are from China and Vietnamese, so there are different forms of investment. For example, China is invest in terms of in the model of contract farming, whereas the value should be focused on the fair price and social inclusion. While the Vietnamese investors focus on the invest in the model of land concession. So the share should be, the land assets should be very fair, and also productivity should be there. So there are different share value in terms of investment with the community engagement. So this is very hard, and we see the importance that when we're working together, and Laos said we are in the same boat. So when you are working with the community, make sure that you are in the local context, that you are working with local people and have some bridging in there. Make sure that you have you are the same people like there. So that's very important to engage together and working together to make sure that we understand each other in the context of rubber management in the country or in the region, that one. So that's very important to engage how community to understand the value of sharing in terms of investment and also livelihood improvement in the area. Yep.
Thank you so much, Duangjan, for that. And I think what you mentioned about the different practices of investors based on their countries is really important and really interesting too. It probably relates to the types of challenges that could occur, but also some opportunities that we could explore in the next rounds of questions. So that's, I think, good for round one. Round two, we'll focus more specifically on challenges that prevent effective communication and engagement between businesses and communities. As we know, even with good intentions and commitment from both sides, sometimes meaningful engagement can break down due to a variety of factors. Could be lack of trust, limited access to information, or sometimes power imbalances. So we'll take this round to unpack those barriers, which will help set the stage for our next rounds on good business practices and also solutions toward the end. So to start this round, we'll hear from two of our speakers, and then we'll provide a bit of time at the end where we'll open up the floor for reflections from participants in the room. So to kick off this round, I'd like to invite Akihiro from JSER. So from your perspective and your experience supporting dialogue and grievance resolution between businesses and communities, what are some common patterns or challenges that you've observed?
Thank you so much. And first of all, let me express my sincere gratitude to the organizers for inviting me to this very important event. So since some of you may not be familiar with JSER, let me very briefly introduce. So our role is to receive human rights related complaints against our member companies and to support resolution through dialogue between parties involved. And JSER was established about 3 years ago in Japan and currently have 77 member companies. And so far this year, we have received more than 80 complaints, doubled from last year. So turning to the question of whether there are common challenges and patterns, there are many common challenges. But my view is that the greatest challenge for non-judicial operational level mechanism, JSER is one of them, is a lack of trust. And this applies both to lack of trust in companies and lack of trust in rights holders. So why does this matter? Why is trust essential? Well, because in operational level mechanisms, grievances must, in principle, be resolved through dialogue. As you know, guiding principle 31H emphasizes that grievance mechanisms should focus on dialogue as a means to address and resolve grievances. But dialogue here does not mean simply talking to each other. It must be a process genuinely aimed at reaching mutual agreement. And for such dialogue to be possible at all, the minimum requirement is that both parties trust one another. So when I speak of trust, I mean something different from personal likes and dislikes. Trust can exist even when parties dislike each other. To trust the other side means, at a minimum, believing that they will not retaliate or use coercion, that they share a commitment to respecting human rights, that they will not lie or deceive. And what I personally consider especially important is that they are prepared to make compromises through dialogue. And when these conditions are mutually upheld, and that is what I consider to be a state of trust. So while there are indeed many cases that have been successfully resolved through dialogue, I have also seen situations where trust was lacking. And at JSER, more than half of the cases we receive are filed anonymously, and some complainants refuse to engage in dialogue with companies, which I see as evidence of mistrust. On the corporate side, depending on the case, companies are not always eager to engage, particularly when it comes to dialogue with NGOs. And even when dialogue does take place, it does not always appear to be aimed at reaching genuine agreement. So from the perspective of rights holders, I think companies are often perceived as perpetrators, powerful actors driven solely by profit. And from the perspective of companies, however, NGOs may seem unpredictable or even threatening, which makes them reluctant to engage. So on top of this, both sides bring their own background and circumstances, and in many cases, strong emotions, especially when victims themselves are the one filing the report, make compromise very difficult. I stop here.
Thank you so much, Akihiro, for that. A really profound analysis of the factors that lead to trust and how different stakeholders may come into the dispute resolution process with different perspectives and backgrounds, and all of that relates to how we can establish trust. And I like your mention of the difference between non-judicial and judicial mechanisms in terms of resolving disputes. There may be some dynamics there that we could explore further as well. All right, so next, since we're talking about challenges, it would be nice to hear a bit more from the community side. So we'll hear again from Duang Chan from Oxfam Laos. So based on your experience working with communities, what barriers do communities face when trying to engage with companies, and what makes it so difficult on the ground?
Thank you. Yeah, so the challenge is there when investor or business working with the community. So first, a very challenge is the language barrier. When local people do not understand what's the purpose, what's the investment should be, and in particularly in the policy driven, when investor or businessman come to meet the local authority or to the leader and talking about where is the vacant land, where is the available land, and people, local people do not know why this should be given to the businessman, something like that. So the barrier of language is the first thing, and the second thing is the accessing to the information. Make sure that the local people have a very limited access to the information, what should be developed in the area, and then they don't know what should be happen in the future. So what's the impact, what's the loss or the gain from the investment? So that's very important from the local aspect to see how people understand that one. The other is the gender. We also see that most investment do not have a very broad consultation with the women when it's a limited or cultural norm. Women always they always be the accountant or always be in the cashier of the family, and they do not aware what should be happen. So that will be important to bring the woman to see what's the benefit for that one. So that will be very important then. Of course, the very important is that we see the challenge when the government and the business men working together and go to the village and working with the people. So they see government and businessmen is this one person. The other is the community is another person to deal. And who will be the middleman, or who will be the third party to bring together or to make something to be clear. For example, if you are working with the other people, you just try to do whatever you want to get. But the third party, a third person should be like a CSO or other should be working closely with those two parties to bring together and see what's the challenge, what's the need of the local community. So that's a big challenge, and we have no platform to do at the local level to solve this at the beginning for the land use planning or from the early stage. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Duang Jan. Quite a lot of interesting challenges there. Language barriers, obviously, and also access to information, which reflects what Sutari mentioned during the opening round. And I also thought the perspective on gender was really interesting, how women are often left out in the conversations and maybe the consultation processes related to when projects are being brought into communities. And also a lack of an appropriate middle person who can help bridge the gap between the two, and also a lack of a platform on the local level to deal with these issues. So we have about 4 to 5 minutes left in this round, and I think it would be a great opportunity to open up the floor for reflections from participants, particularly from the business side. We'd like to hear a lot more from you over here on this issue. So if anyone would like to share, please, by a show of hands, just let us know. Okay.
I would like to introduce myself. I'm Shai Pisit from PTT Oil and Retail Business. Public Company Limited from a flagship company of PTT Group of Thailand. We are just large business and doing business with the local communities. And about the major challenge that about the preventing effective communications between business and communities. I think there are three aspects that is involved these challenges. The first one is the trust. The trust between communities and businesses is very important. As you have mentioned before, if the trust is missing, communities can become resistant and maybe unwilling to engage in a dialogue. So businesses should have demonstrate sincerity and inclusiveness from their business into the communities, so that if communities feel involved and they may ensuring that local people benefit, and especially in the areas that they may have some pain points in that communities. For example, one major pain point of the communities, especially I will address in Thailand rural areas. One major pain point is about the lack of knowledge and skills to sustain their livelihoods, to uplift their revenues or something to live their life. And if business can fill this gap and build trust and engage this for communities, they can engage in open dialogue with communities more easily. The second one is about the change management from the communities, from the before state to the after state. If business, we have some initiatives, some projects. If business have just ESG directions, and we have to develop the land or improve environmental concerns or something like that, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, for example. It may affect some beliefs or original practice that the original communities have done before, and they may have some change, and they may resist in the first time that they have heard from the communities. And this is how can business can do is to convince communities with both and short-term and long-term benefits, and maybe sharing knowledge and practical assistance, and maybe forming partnership that is capable to engage and have some tools to develop with the community. Last and not least, because this is maybe the problem is the value chain engagement, because the large community may have not much about this problem to comply with human rights regulations or some good practice, but SMEs or some small business within the value chain of the large business may have some problem about their costs, or there are some facilities that's not doesn't have enough, or just like to oversight all across the value chains. So this is the main problem, that maybe the big companies in the value chain may have to build capability, sharing knowledge, and offering support across value chain to endorse the human rights, to not abuse with the communities.
Thank you so much, Kun Chaipisit from PTTOR. Really nice summary of some key challenges that we face here. I think we have one hand. I think we have time for one more in this round, and if not enough, we can do it again at the Q&A. So just one, maybe this gentleman over here. Yeah.
No, I'm Ashok from India. What kind of dialogue by company with a community, and what kind of a response by community? If community says no, then what is the action of business houses? That I want to know.
This may be I think it would be a good question for either our business representatives or our colleagues that maybe work with both sides. Would anyone want to take that question?
I think thank you for the questions. And one thing that I actually would like to emphasize in the next round as well, but I can also provide here. The sustainable developments is only possible if it's respecting and promoting the right of the people and the right of the planet, including the right to self-determinations and for the community to participate and have the agency over the developments and the operations of the business. So I think this would be something that I like to share, for the answer.
Thank you for that. I think that also ties in nicely to our previous reflections on trust and how sometimes it can be difficult to achieve when communities feel like they're not a part of the process or they don't see the benefits of the projects that businesses are implementing within their communities. And also some things regarding value chain engagement, which big companies are probably trying to onboard due to HRDD regulations, but can still be a challenge for smaller companies within the overall supply chain. So we have about 10 minutes at the end for open reflections and Q&A, so just keep your questions for a few more minutes and then we'll open up the floor again during the next rounds. I just want to move on quickly to round 3, which turns to what is actually working. So we'd like to share maybe some practical examples of engagement that actually effectively builds trust and improves outcomes between businesses and companies. So for this round, we'll hear from one of our speakers first, Mr. Wang, and then we'll open up the floor a bit. And we'd like to particularly hear from representatives of the business sector, if they could share their approaches, experiences, or lessons learned regarding to engaging with local communities. But first off, to begin, I'd just like to invite Mr. Wang again. Based on your experience, can you share an example of an approach that helped improve engagement with local communities and what made it effective?
我们和当地社区的互动的价值是这样：社区会更快地给企业带来当地文化生活的习惯。
So the benefit I got from community engagement in our Lao communities is that the Lao communities can actually teach us the local culture and traditions.
作为一个外来企业，我想，如果你不了解当地的文化和生活习惯，你很难融入当地的社会。
So as a company that coming from outside, from China to Laos, it's very difficult for us at the beginning to learn about the local culture and the life habits of the local people.
当你了解当地的生活习惯和当地的员工，才能建立更加信任的关系。
So through engagement with the local communities, we learned about the habits and the traditions and the culture. It's easier for us to operate
这样员工
and build trust.
这样员工才能更放心的在你工厂里工作。
And also it's easier for us to recruit people to work for us, and they also have trust in us.
那共同创造价值。
So we can build a common value to both of us.
那个社区就说为什么会企业有益呢？我想第二个，社区我想可以有一个更大的起到一个更大的作用。
And another significance that communities can support a business is
它是和我们当地政府和企业连接的一个纽带。
So communities actually play a bridging role for us between us and the local government.
由社区和我们企业和政府建立一个更加良好的信任关系。
The communities themselves actually also help us to build trust between our business and the local government.
建立这种信任关系之后，企业和政府共同努力，使企业在当地更好的成长。
So that our business can also work together with the local government for the benefit of the local people and the local economy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think that is a really nice remark on ways that we can create more trust and engagement from communities when businesses start to introduce their projects in local communities. So engaging communities at the beginning to help familiarize the business with the local practices and cultures, and also including them as staff, as workers through recruitment, which can provide opportunities for more career and livelihood opportunities. And the last part regarding bridging companies with local governments is really important, I think, and also being able to scale that and work with governments on bigger policy issues that can help benefit the local communities in terms of like big picture economic issues, I think is really important, and are some really nice remarks. So we have a few minutes in this round as well. And again, I'd like to open up the floor to our participants if we want to share anything regarding to what we've seen that works between business and community engagement.
Can I introduce our organization?
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I represent India. About us, a world of happiness through craft. Every purchase at Alpana's goes beyond owning a beautiful handmade craft. It helps build a family, support rural artisans, and empower women. You become a part of a mission that spreads happiness and sustains livelihoods. Alpana was formed in 2013 with 16 groups of artisans. Alpana provides ethical handmade products. It impacts sustainable livelihood for artisans, women, and marginalized groups. I am proud to say from the time I was 4 years old, I saw my parents working in rural Indian, working with farmers and artisans and youth in city. As I sit with you all today, I am happy to learn how to be careful to run company and keep people happy. I want to thank all speakers that I learned it is important to express our idea and learning. It is important to learn good things. I thank God to be here, and I am proud to say my name is Alpana. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're also very happy to have you here as well. And if anyone wants to talk more about crafts from our representative from India, feel free as well. But yes, I'd like to open up the floor a bit more to some of our participants. Okay, we have one here.
My name is Kenneth, and I'm from Sweden, and I'm representing a small company. I came here to Thailand and found out that I was in a tea business a long time, since 1994, and I came to Thailand and realized that farmers here in Thailand was actually producing or having tea plants, but inside the forest, not in monocropped tea plantations. So I started a business around that, and I've been working with communities since then. And one thing that is really important too, that everybody have said now, is the question of trust. It took me a long time to actually build a trust with these communities, but by doing so, I did it, by the way, by always kind of not asking them to do a bunch of samples and trying to kind of use them in the beginning. Always like start the business immediately, buy things from them, even though I didn't want it that way. But then I changed a little bit and turned their production into the tea that I wanted. But I always kind of provide them with small orders, and then I built the trust. And that has been very, very important. I have an example of this from a Lahu village that I work with quite tight. They got a tea factory from the princess of Thailand, and that tea factory was there, and they didn't produce any tea. And this I've seen in many, many villages, that they get like from an aid organization or NGO or something, they get kind of a factory, they get machineries, and they get different things, but after 2 years all these things are standing there and just not being used. Because the problem is not to make tea. That is not the difficult part. The difficult part is to actually sell the tea. And so when I found out about that factory, I started to talk to them, and I said, okay, I will sell tea. So now this factory is now producing full capacity in this factory the last year, and the community is, of course, very happy, and even the Thai government who gave them this factory. But so we help each other. They help me by producing the tea, and I help them by selling the tea and increasing the value, teaching them on what kind of tea they should produce to be able to sell on the market and to reach the customers in international level and also local level. So, but the trust is a very, very important thing, and also the thing of sharing their experience in the tea production and my experience in the sales and so on. So we can find a tea that is unique in the world market, because they give me input how to produce the tea according to them, and I give them input into how to produce the tea according to me. And then we find a way of creating some unique product that is that people like on the both international and local market. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. What a collaborative approach. It seems like it's a real partnership between business and communities based on the experience you've shared, and also plugging into existing production at the local level, and adding value and creating a market for local communities. Definitely a really strategic and effective way of engaging with communities and building trust.
We work today with, I think, 7 communities. But we also got a grant last year that we are now measuring biodiversity among the tea. And we have been able to put in this new program in the communities because we had the trust of 12 years working with them behind. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult. But as a small company, it's also important to address the need of some support. We got this grant, so then we were able to start to interview the communities, the women in the communities, all the people, to take get more knowledge about the human rights situation in the villages and so on. We could not do that before. As a small company, we didn't have the resources to do that. But with this grant, we were able to get closer to the community and know more about them and be able to work more even tighter together with them.
Thank you so much for that. Another really interesting perspective from a smaller company where maybe lack of resources can be a challenge, but as a previous speaker, participant shared, that maybe plugging in with a larger company within the supply chain could also be an option as well. I think we have time for one more reflection on this round. Would anyone like to share before we move on? All right, so then we'll move on to the next and final round, which relates to mechanisms and tools, especially related to grievance and remedy systems that can actually be able to fill the gaps in implementing human rights due diligence and sustainability. So I'd like to begin with some input from our speakers. First, I'd like to invite, again, Dongjan from Oxfam. So from the community perspective, what kind of mechanisms do you think are most helpful in ensuring that local concerns are addressed, especially when there may be some power dynamics that are maybe unequal?
Thank you. Firstly, we should focus on what is the community need and investor need or business need, like land. Land is the main focus or main interest for both party. So the participatory land use planning is the first tool to see how can they use the land in the sustainable way. That's very important to start the business together. And particularly in the Lao context, it's very hard to look at the participatory land use planning because maybe land is not really clear in the law that belong to whom. For example, if the investor to come, the government will say there's the state land. If no investor come, that means community land. So they're very, very difficult at the beginning, and then the state of participatory planning should be very early state. Secondly, the grievance mechanism should be very clear for the community, even local language, or how that grievance should be should be available for community to raise their concern, to give the voice how, if they are unhappy, they are not happy, what should they do? So the grievance mechanism should be very clear for this estate. And thirdly is a multi-stakeholder platform. That's very important. When development always focus on the money, focus on the profit, and also community also focus on the livelihood improvement, and no platform to see how the stakeholder can be working together. And particularly, it's very important for example, the new rubber sector is new, and so the government is denied to see what should be doing with that sector. But when the sector is developing so fast, the problem is there. So the platform should be provided to be the event to talk about the issue and to raise about the issue. That may be finally to be like a policy influence. For sure, the message should be go to the government in the final stage. Yeah, and also see the transparency or trust, like we said before. That's very important. When the investor or business come, they have to, government or local people have to trust that what they should do and what is the benefit for, mutual benefit for both the party. So that's very important. That will be very short from now.
Thank you, Doongjan. Several examples there, such as participatory land use planning, probably a really pressing issue in rural land and projects that are working with more rural land development. Also more clear and actionable grievance mechanisms, making it clear for communities what they have to do step by step if they experience any challenges or want to take these grievances somewhere. And also having some type of multi-stakeholder platform or someone that can help bridge the gap, connect all stakeholders and identify common ground. All right, so that's from the community side. Next, I'd like to hear a bit more from Sutari from Accountability Council. So just based on your work with communities and also international development institutions, how can businesses strengthen their internal grievance mechanisms? And also another aspect that I think would be interesting is exploring what the role of external mechanisms can play when those internal systems fall short.
Thank you, Nadia, for the questions. So at Accountability Council, our expertise is mostly to support the community to engage with the accountability mechanism, or basically the complaint mechanism that are tied to the International Development Bank, for example, the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, International Finance Corporations. So based on our work with this bank mechanism, we have found that the grievance redress and accountability mechanisms, these are the essential tools not only to promote and also ensure the sustainability of the business operations, but most importantly, it will also ensure that the community have a venue to proactively raise their concern and to find the solutions, like when their rights or their interests are not being respected or are not being protected. And I would like to make a case why it is important for the business to also set up these grievance mechanisms. So first of all, this can help reduce the financial, constructions, operations, and reputational and corporate risk. By providing the early warnings for the risk that will come up with the business and operations, and by providing the problem solving of the project options, and by improving the public awareness of the stakeholder engagement in the project. So this can immensely reduce the risk that the community, the business might face in the future of their operations. Secondly, this accountability mechanism can provide a much needed avenue for the people to assert their right and also their interests, especially in the context of the restricted free speech and civic space like that we have seen in many countries. The third case is that if these mechanisms are created and also operate in a way that inclusive and also transparent, they can empower community voice and transparently to facilitate the response and remedy, including monitoring and also follow-up from that grievance. Then they can provide the accountability and assurance of human rights due diligence. So with the business, I think that it's very important to maintain that they have the transparent way of communications. They can also publish their commitment and also the information regarding the project and in a more inclusive rounded approach, and also to perform a more proactive outreach to the community by holding by make sure that the community can raise their voice and they can be accounted for the commitments. Yeah, so I would like to share this one.
Thank you so much for that. Really interesting factors maybe for convincing of a business case for more effective grievance mechanisms. I really like the point you mentioned about how grievance mechanisms can also form as a part of like an early warning of potential impacts of future risks to the companies. I think that's really important and a really important resource for businesses. And at the end of the day, grievance mechanisms also are intrinsically linked to access to effective remedies, right? We need to get the grievances, get in the information, and that is how we start to be able to provide actual remedies and accountability. So thank you for that. And finally, I'd like to turn to Akihiro from JSER. So from your perspective, as a platform working directly on grievance resolution, what role can a neutral third-party mechanism like JSER play in helping resolve disputes fairly, both for companies and for communities?
Yeah, thanks, Nadia. And I think it's better to begin by providing a couple of caveats, because first of all, your question is about a neutral third-party mechanism, and if by neutral you mean without any bias, I think that position is simply impossible. And if a mediator were to insist on such an instance, I would argue that they are in fact concealing their own standpoint, which should give us a reason for concern. At JSER, when direct dialogue between parties proves difficult, we may, with the consent of both sides, establish what we call an advisory and mediation committee. And importantly, this committee does not claim to be neutral, and instead we describe it as an independent. And it is an independent third-party mechanism mandated to base its assessment on internationally recognized human rights standards. And in that sense, the committee is not indifferent, and it will take a position on particular issues guided by these standards. So second, and here I'm referring in particularly to non-judicial operational level grievance mechanisms, which are established and operated by companies themselves, and in which the company itself holds the responsibility to address and resolve issues. In such mechanisms, complaints should be resolved through dialogue. And in principle, even the third-party mechanism cannot provide binding judgments. So if complainants seek legally binding judgments, they need to take their cases to the court. So now, what role can an independent third-party mechanism play in resolving disputes? So in my view, it can make a difference in three important ways. First, by joining the process, it can reduce the amount of trust that is required between the parties. So as I said earlier, meaningful dialogue always needs a certain level of trust. But in reality, that trust is often missing. And in such cases, the presence of an independent third party can give both sides enough assurance to start dialogue. And second, by bringing in an outside perspective, it can help move the discussion forward when dialogue has reached a deadlock. From my experience, once a dispute arises, both sides often become kind of defensive and narrow in their views. So this makes it hard to move forward. An independent third party, using international human rights standards and lessons from past cases, can introduce a fresh perspective that helps break the deadlock. And finally, by pointing to possible compromises from an objective position, it can raise the chances that the parties will actually reach an agreement. Very often, disputes remain unresolved because both sides see compromise as a kind of defeat and refuse to give ground. An independent third party, by listening to both sides and suggesting fair middle ground, can encourage them to make concessions and finally resolve the issue. So of course, this is easier said than done. So far, we have been talking about trust between the parties, but in fact, for an independent third-party mechanism to function effectively, the mechanism itself must also earn certain level of trust from the parties. And when the mechanism suggests a compromise, for example, and if this trust is lacking, one side may perceive the mechanism as being biased towards the other party. Yeah, so just to conclude my comment, trust is critically important, and it is essential to make ongoing efforts to build and maintain trust even before dispute arise. So in that sense, I think stakeholder engagement, which our colleagues have suggested, is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Quite a lot to digest. I really like your note on viewing external parties as independent rather than neutral. And I think the way that JSER has tried to create independence or more objectivity in dispute resolution by linking it to international standards is a really interesting approach. And also the fact that these external mechanisms also require some level of trust from both sides as well. And yes, I like your final point saying that at the end of the day, effective engagement at the beginning of business operations is probably the most effective way to reduce these risks before grievances come and disputes need to be resolved. All right, so we have a few more minutes left before the session ends. I just like to open up the floor, give the opportunity for any participants who'd like to join in. If you have any reflections that you weren't able to share earlier or any questions, please feel free to share them now by a show of hands. Okay, we have one at the back there. Yes.
Hi, my name is Panupan from WFD. I would like to start with the so in my experience, many businesses engage with local communities because they would like to put the terms engagement in the report or in some indicators. And with that mindset, it leads to the wrong direction and does not reflect what the engagement should be. For example, they will engage with only the aggrieved people in the communities, or they will have establish the grievance mechanism, but it's not functional. And the popular case is that they can show you that it's zero the complaints from the communities. But if you look at the detail, it's not functional grievance mechanism. Because of this, instead of the genuinely listen to the communities, it's like for the business, for some company, it's source of the ceremonial process to do that instead of to listen to the community. So my short question is how could we mitigate this issue, or can we establish the true engagement with the communities from the business? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I really like your point on engagement maybe not being actually meaningful, more ceremonial, and the fact that sometimes companies advertise that they have received 0 complaints, but that doesn't mean that there are no grievances that actually occur, right? So this question might be good for a business participant. Maybe Mr. Wang, could you share? Would you have any notes to share on this part? Okay, before that, Mr. Dongjan can chime in.
Thank you for that very important point to see how can business to engage with the community. In particularly at the moment we see that point, and that's why we try to promote responsible investment, make sure that the business have to respond for what, for example, environment, social aspect is there. So we see the social inclusion, environmental inclusion is there. And that's why when we are working with the community to see just only comply with other things, but actually it's not happen. Fair is not there, trust is not there. That's why I do try to diverse our thinking and to see how can we work for the business sector to promote the more responsible business. Yep.
Thank you. Would anyone like to chime in for? I think they're taking it. Yeah, okay, so Sutari, you can, oh, okay. We can start with Mr. Wang first, and then Sutari, you can join in a bit later.
我想有2个点哈。第一个点就是，员工和企业发生冲突之后，社区起到一个什么一个作用？第一个问题就是，社区要给企业带来什么？企业给社区带来什么？企业给员工带来什么？我想这3点很重要。怎么把这3点平衡好？ 对有个企业来讲是非常重要一件事情，就说大家会把大家把这个3方的关系建立一个比较相互、比较信任之后，才能把这个关系平衡掉。
So I want to make 2 points. The first one is the balance we have to make amongst the business, the local communities, as well as the employees that we recruit from the local people. It is very important to make the balance between amongst these 3 stakeholders to build the trust for us to operate smoothly.
我想很多时候啊，如果企业在非正常的情况下，企业和员工之间的这个关系，有些是建在对立面上的。
Sometimes, if we don't deal with the relationship well, sometimes the employees and the businesses are on the opposite side.
有时候员工会就说想得到更多的工资，付出更少的努力。
Sometimes the employees they may want higher salaries and with the current effort.
有时企业会向员工付出更多的努力。 可能发更少的工资。
And sometimes business may want the employees to put more efforts, but keeping the salary level.
就是在这种关系下，企业和员工之间的关系是对立的。
And in this situation, we are on the opposite sides.
那这个社区就起到一个关键作用。
And in this case, actually, communities can play an important key factor and influence in this.
这里面还有2方面的问题。第一个问题是，当地的员工的需求是什么？
So we need to consider two factors. One is what are the actual needs of the local employees.
这是我们企业必须要了解一个问题。
So this is
也是面对一个问题。
This is the most important question that the company have to face and to understand.
打个比方说。 我在老挝差不多15年了。
For example, I have been in Laos for 15 years.
老挝的农村是非常艰苦的。
And the local situation in the rural areas of Laos is very difficult.
因为老挝的农村每天都要生火吃饭，就说。
And they have to use firewood to cook their meals.
有一些地方是没水没电。
And many places are lacking access to water and electricity.
所以他们每次做饭的时候都是要现做现吃，但没有做好的东西，或者说去外面去采购来吃饭。
So they actually have to make the meals on the spot, so they cannot prepare food in the morning and then have lunch later.
那怎么办？员工来你工厂工作之后，你每天都要发工资给他。
And so the issue I have to face is to give them salary every day.
这企业很困惑。
It's a bafflement for the business at first.
那怎么办？你要跟员工建立一个信任的关系。
So I have to establish a trust relation with these employees.
是员工 先工作后给钱呢？是我们是企业先给钱，员工后工作呢？
So the question I have to face is whether I could prepay their daily salary for them to be able to cook their meals, or do I have to keep the original way of giving them salary after they work?
所以这样呢，我们需要社区来国民做个，就是说双方有个担保嘛。
So we actually rely on the communities to kind of provide us a guarantee kind of for both sides, for the local employees and for the businesses.
OK， 有了社区担保之后，我们大家建立信任关系，我们也可以提前给员工发工资。
So yeah, so based on the learning from the local communities, we kind of get the guarantee that we can confidently provide the daily salary first, and for them to work later.
所以这样员工呢说，他会更安心的在企业工作。
So actually, for the employees, they are also more comfortable and assured that they are willing to work for my company.
所以这种情况，我们差不多将近通过1年时间的这个努力嘛，才把这个整个和员工和社区和企业的关系才扭转过来。
So it took us a year actually to explore this approach and the mechanism, and to eventually balance the relationships.
所以现在我们企业可以和员工之间建立更好的信任了。
So that we can build the trust between us and the employees.
现在我是1个月发1次工资。
And now I actually can pay monthly salaries now with the local employees.
所以社区对一个外来投资企业非常非常的重要。
So I have to emphasize again that communities are very important for our operation, especially in a foreign country.
谢谢大家。
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful example of community business engagement, and also when we bring in communities into the workforce as part of our business, and working with them to understand their local challenges actually can help improve their livelihoods overall and also make the business more sustainable. So thank you for that. Sutari, maybe you could chime in on this as well.
Yes, maybe I would like to bring back to the discussions about the grievance mechanisms that we had before a bit earlier. I think as the last final thought, from our work with the community, what is most important for the community to know about this grievance mechanism is that first, what are the options for the remedy that are available? Both the harms that are already exist because of the business operations, and also the future harm that will occur because of that operations. Secondly, how the community can access to this grievance or the complaint mechanism, and how this mechanism operate. Right? And thirdly, how can they trust that their concern will be responded in a way that also both consultative and also providing enough space and open dialogue for both sides. So I think these are some of the final point that I would like to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, so I think we've had quite a lot of discussions and reflections from the floor. We're about 10 minutes over time now, so I think it would be a good time to wrap up the session. So thank you all again for your openness, insights, and participation. And on behalf of Give to Nature, Accountability Council, and the UN Global Compact Network Thailand, thank you all again for being a part of this dialogue and for your continued efforts to advancing responsible business conduct in the region. We hope you have a great final day at the forum, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.